In May of 2024, Warner Bros. And Amazon put out a press release for their upcoming cartoon, Batman Caped Crusader, giving us a first look at some of the characters we'll see in the show. I've already made videos looking at their version of Clayface and Harley Quinn, so go check those out after this video if you haven't already. But today I want to talk about the show's version of Catwoman. The press release also included a character bio, so let's look at that first. Selina Kyle is a blithe and pampered heiress whose family lost their fortune after her father was imprisoned for embezzlement. Despite having the silver spoon yanked from her mouth, Selina refuses to quit living in the lap of luxury and becomes Catwoman as a fun way to maintain her lavish lifestyle. The first thing to leap out at me is the fact that this Catwoman is centered around the concept of theft as fun. She steals to maintain her lavish lifestyle and get some enjoyment out of her life. This is a stark contrast to the other villains we've been introduced to. Clayface is intended to be a disfigured murderer driven by a desire for revenge, while their version of Harley Quinn is a grim and frightening figure that dishes out punishment to Gotham's elite. Selina just wants to have some fun. Having said that, there is an element of tragedy. Selina and her family face poverty through no fault of their own. It was her father who was a criminal, and his actions led to the family losing their money. This differs from the modern interpretation of Catwoman, who Frank Miller reimagined as an orphan sex worker in Gotham's East End. In recent years, writers like Tom King have embellished her impoverished upbringing by showing her growing up under the tutelage of the nefarious Sewer King from Batman the Animated Series. There are some similarities, namely the threat of poverty, but in my mind this is the opposite of what we're getting in Caped Crusader. Producer James Tucker has described this version of Catwoman as being inspired by Barbara Stanwyck's performance as the title character in The Lady Eve. The Lady Eve is a 1940s comedy about a female con artist trying to ensnare an eligible wealthy bachelor. After she is caught out and gets dumped, she reintroduces herself into the Playboy's life, pretending to be the titular Lady Eve. I have to wonder if the promotional image of Selina Kyle was chosen because it shows her interacting with Bruce Wayne. Perhaps this Selina Kyle sees Wayne as a potential target. Little does she know that he is secretly the Batman. As for the Catwoman costume, we can see that this version of the character strongly resembles the Catwoman of the 1940s, with a purple costume and a green cape. We saw a similar costume in Tucker's Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon, which had a completely different tone to the other Batman cartoons. Speaking about the design, Bruce Timm said, "We didn't want to do the beat-ass Catwoman, or the version that Ed Brubaker and Darwin Cook did in the early 2000s with a practical leather jumpsuit, which has become her default look in the comics and the movies. That's great, I love that, but we wanted to do something different. So we thought, well, let's go all the way back to the beginning. I love the original look that she had in the 40s. It's purple." If we compare this design to the other villains we've seen so far, her general tone doesn't really seem to match them. And that is a very intentional choice, as Bruce Timm indicated when talking about Catwoman's episode. "That episode is just fun, but it also has moments that are really serious and dark. It's the juxtaposition of those two things that makes that episode really cool." So it sounds like we're going to have a light and breezy version of Catwoman in some dark scenarios. This leads me to wonder if Catwoman will start out lighthearted, but by the end of the episode she may very well be in a different place. And this leads me to why I'm particularly excited about the prospect of this version of Catwoman. The lead writer of Season 1 of Caped Crusader is Ed Brubaker, and he is no stranger to Catwoman. I would argue that his Catwoman comic book run from about 20 years ago, oh god, excuse me while I turn to dust, is the definitive version of Catwoman. Ed Brubaker, along with artists Darwin Cook, Brad Rader, Cameron Stewart and Paul Galassi, redefined Catwoman for the early 2000s, focusing more on the crime side of Catwoman as she protected the inhabitants of Gotham's East End slums. One of the darkest parts of the series involved Black Mask kidnapping Catwoman's estranged sister Maggie and her husband Simon, and he put them through some truly horrific torture. I don't know if Brubaker is writing the Catwoman episode, and there's no guarantee that his work will be adapted here, but I find it very hard to believe that his Catwoman comics wouldn't provide at least some influence. The idea of a bright and breezy Catwoman being juxtaposed with the dark dourness of Caped Crusader is genuinely exciting for me. And that's all we know about this version of Catwoman. Fortunately, we don't have long to wait until we can see her in action ourselves. All 10 episodes of Batman Caped Crusader will be dropping on Amazon Prime Video on the 1st of August. Stay tuned for more videos about Caped Crusader in the coming months.